Hello students, how are you all? So today we'll start with the first chapter, some basic concepts in chemistry. Okay, so as the name suggests, some basic concepts. So here we'll be learning about the basic concepts in the chemistry. Firstly, what is chemistry? As this now you have opted chemistry as a subject, so it's everything will be new for you because till 10th standard you have studied as an integrated science. Okay, only with science you have studied. So now it will be complete chemistry, physics, and then bio and mathematics for you. So let's start with the chemistry part. So here you will learn what is chemistry, then what are its application in our day-to-day life, and whatever you have studied up to 10th standard, so that we will recall. Okay, and then after that we will move forward. So basic concepts of chemistry. So what is chemistry? While hearing this term, what comes to your mind? Okay, so generally we can say chemistry is just nothing, it's just about the matter. Okay, it is about the matter, its structure, its composition, because as we know that atom is the building block of the matter. Okay, so that is only chemistry, that how is atom is taking part in the reaction. Fine. So it's all about its structure, composition, how atom is taking part in the reaction, and all the laws that governing these changes, the laws that you have studied, responsible for the chemical reaction. Okay, so let's see what is matter. Matter, you know that anything which has mass and occupies space, that is a matter. If we'll classify matter, and it is of two types, physical and chemical matter. Okay, which you have already studied. Okay, so physical, that you already know, solids, liquids and gases. Solids, then liquids and gases. Fine. Then chemically, you know it is of two types, pure substances and mixtures. Pure substances, it is of two types again, elements and compounds. Fine. Mixtures, again it is of two types, homogeneous, heterogeneous. Okay, homogeneous means homogeneous mixtures are solutions. So we'll talk about solutions also and its chemical properties, and all about the concentration of it. Fine. Then elements, we know it is of three types, metals, non-metals, then semi-metals or your metalloids, which possess the properties of both metals as well as non-metals. So semi-metals you can say. Fine. Then compounds also, it is of two types, organic sorry, and inorganic. Fine. So this is all about the matter. All the things you already know, you all are aware with all the things from your previous classes only. Fine. So this is about your pure substances, elements and compounds, that we have already know. What are elements, what are compounds, how these are formed. Then mixtures, homogeneous, heterogeneous. Then organic, inorganic compounds. Let's see, organic compounds are those which derive from the plants or animals. Okay, or you can say which are of animal or plants origin. Like your naphthalene, benzene, all these are organic compounds. All hydrocarbons, methane and all, which we have studied in 10th standard. Organic, that carbon and its compound, that is all organic. Inorganic, you say, that is of mineral origin, which is obtained from the earth crust. All the salt, sodium chloride, this magnesium carbonate, aluminium chloride, all these are the inorganic compounds. Fine. So let's see this. So chemistry, we have discussed what's the meaning of chemistry. That is a branch of science which deals with the matter, its composition, its structure, chemical reactions, and all the laws which changes or which govern these chemical reactions. Fine. So then what is the application of chemistry? As you already know that in our surrounding, just look at your surrounding, everything around your surrounding is chemistry. Okay, water we drink is chemistry. The food we eat, it's chemistry. Everything. You just see everywhere chemistry is involved. Okay, in industrial applications are there, then in food industry, in medicinal, all this medicinal industry, pharmaceutical industry, all based on chemistry. Everything, whatever you are using in everyday life, soap, brush, teeth, and this toothpaste, each and everything. Okay, so without chemistry, no life. Okay, that's why we say life is chemistry. Okay, so let's start with the basic things. So matter and all we know, so we'll directly start with the laws of chemical combination. Fine. That how the atoms, they take part in the chemical reaction, because we know that atom is the building block of the matter. Like we know that cell is the building block of life, fundamental unit of life. Similarly, atom is here the smallest particle, which is the fundamental unit of matter or building block of the matter. Fine. So let's start. And here only I'll mention that chemistry, it's a branch of science. Branch of science deals with matter, its structure, composition, laws governing chemical reactions, etc. So all this is chemistry. Fine. So now let's start with the laws of chemical combination. So laws of chemical combination. Laws of chemical combination. So how atoms take part in the reaction? How atoms combine chemically? Fine, with the help of laws of chemical combination. These laws will decide that how a particular atom or a molecule take part in a reaction. As we know, atoms when combined together give rise to molecule. Molecule will combine together, give rise to compound. Okay, so these will take part in the reaction. When atoms and molecules combine, then compound gets formed. Okay, so what are the laws? First law is law of conservation of mass. Okay, second, law of definite composition. Then third is law of multiple proportion. Multiple proportion. Fourth one is Gay-Lussac law of volume. Gay-Lussac law of volume. Okay, so these are the laws of chemical combination. So two of the laws you have already dealt in the 9th standard. You have dealt with. Then let's start with the first one. Okay, first law, law of conservation of mass. Law of conservation of mass. It is given by Antony Lavoisier. Lavoisier in 1774. Okay, this is given by Antony Lavoisier in 1774. So according to the law, what is the statement? That you have already studied this, mass of the reactants is always equal to the mass of the products. Or alternatively, if you see that it's a conservation of mass, it means mass is conserved, so that mass can neither be created nor it can be destroyed during the chemical reaction. Okay, so mass can neither be created, neither be created nor it can be destroyed during chemical reaction. Fine. Or alternative is what? Mass of the reactant is always equal to the mass of the product. Okay. Let's verify this. You have verified also this law in the 9th standard with the help of precipitation reaction. Okay. What was that reaction? That you have taken the solution of aqueous solution of barium chloride with the aqueous solution of sodium sulfate. Fine. Then what is getting formed? Barium sulfate, that is white precipitate. It's a precipitation reaction. Plus 2 NaCl, 2 molecules of NaCl. This was a reaction where in that barium sulfate is insoluble in water. That's why it's a white precipitate. Precipitate is the insoluble substance. Insoluble part. And NaCl as a salt, it's a soluble in water. Okay. So what has been observed during the reaction? This experiment was carried out. So initially when they have these two things in the two test tubes and they have weighed the solution, barium chloride and sodium sulfate, and after the reaction when precipitation has taken place, again they have weighed the solution, then they have found that the mass is coming out to be equal. It means during the reaction there is no change in the mass of the reactants as well as the product. So mass is conserved. Mass is conserved. Similarly, in the reaction of ice to water, okay, taken the ice and weighed, fine, mass is already taken. Then when it allows to heat or to melt and gets converted into the water, then again they have weighed the mass of the water. Again they have found the mass is conserved. There is no change in the mass of the reactants as well as of the product in both the cases during the chemical change. This is chemical change, chemical reaction, as well as during the physical change. Physical change. So the mass is conserved during both the changes. Fine. So this is the meaning of this law. But let's modify this law, because what has been observed that during the nuclear reactions, okay, when nuclear reactions takes place with the help of fusion and fission process, in that it has been observed that mass has been destroyed, or some of the mass of the reactant is getting converted into the, you can say it is getting changed into energy. Okay, when they have taken the mass of the reactant as a product, in that case during nuclear reaction they have seen that mass of the product is less. In case of, this is the exceptional case. Fine. In case of nuclear reaction, what has been observed, that mass of the products is less than that of the mass of the reactants. Fine. Because what happens here, as according to Einstein equation, E is equal to mc square. See, here energy is related to mass. So it means here mass is getting converted into energy. Okay, mass is converted into energy. That's why it is less. Okay, so after that this law has been modified. And then what's the modified version of the law? Modified. In modified law they have said that mass and energy, they are interconvertible. Mass and energy are interconvertible forms, but it both remains conserved during chemical as well as physical change. Chemical and physical change. So this is about the law of conservation of mass. I hope it's clear to everyone till here. Okay, now let's see the next law, law of definite proportion by mass. Okay, second law. Let's see the second one. Law of definite proportion by mass. Second, law of definite proportion by mass. Right. Now, what's the meaning of this law? According to this law, the mass of the elements, okay, in a compound, mass of the elements remains same whether that particular compound is taken from any source. Okay, irrespective of its source, mass of the elements, or you can say the ratio in which the elements combine by a definite ratio of their masses, it will remain same. For example, what's the meaning of this? Let's say, if I'll say take water, okay, water, we know that here how water is formed. Water is formed by combining hydrogen and oxygen in a fixed ratio by their masses. Okay, that is, what's the mass of the hydrogen? That is 2 here. Okay, one hydrogen atom is having 2, so here 2 are here, so 4. 4 is 2. Oxygen is having mass of 16. Fine, so it is 2 is to 8 and 1 is to 4. So hydrogen and 2 is to 16 will take for 1 hydrogen. 1 is to 8. So oxygen and hydrogen, they always combine 1 is to 8 by their masses. Okay, so this is the meaning of law of definite proportion by mass, that a chemical compound is always found to be made up of the same elements combined together in the same fixed proportion by mass. Okay, so water, you just take water. Water you just take from any source, either take from river, ocean, well, tap water, rainwater, or from any other place, either from India, America, any other. But water will remain same. The formula will remain same. Only hydrogen and oxygen will combine in their fixed ratio by their masses. This is the meaning of this law. For example, if I take CO2, carbon dioxide. See, carbon dioxide can be obtained from any source, either from the atmosphere. Okay, either carbon is combining with oxygen, we will get CO2. If we decompose calcium carbonate, decompose heating, this is symbol for heating, then calcium oxide plus CO2 gas gets formed. If we can take calcium chloride, react with calcium carbonate, HCl, then we'll get calcium carbonate plus water plus CO2 gas gets formed. Okay, just balance the reaction. Okay, in this way. So CO2 we are getting from all the reactions. So irrespective of the source from where we are getting that compound, ratio of the elements according to their masses, it will remain fixed. So that's why it's the law of definite proportion by mass. So what is the statement for this? That in chemical compound, or a chemical compound is always found to be made up of, the same elements combined together in same fixed ratio by their masses. Ratio by proportion of their masses, by their masses, like here CO2. So carbon is 12, oxygen is 32. So simplified, what you will get? 3:8. So carbon and oxygen element, they always combine in the ratio of 3:8, and here hydrogen and oxygen always combine in the ratio of 1:8. So this is the meaning of this. Fine. So it's with each and every compound. Okay, so this is the meaning of this law. Now let's see the next one. Law of multiple proportion by mass. And this law has been given by the scientist, that is the chemist, Joseph Proust. Joseph Proust in the year 1799. 1799. Fine. So let's see the next law. Law of multiple proportion by mass. Given by Dalton, who has given the Dalton atomic theory in the year 1804. Law of multiple proportion by mass, given by Dalton in 1804. Now what's the meaning of this law? Whenever elements combine to form the compound, okay, whenever element combines to form one or more compounds, they always combine in the fixed ratio by masses, and in those compounds also they will possess that simple whole number ratio. Okay, so let's see the statement of this. When two elements combine to form, when two elements combine to form one or two compounds, or two or more compounds, two or more compounds, then the masses of one of the element, then the masses of one of the element which will combine, one of the element which will combine the fixed mass of the other, which will combine with the fixed mass of the other, bears a simple whole number ratio. So this is the statement, bears a simple whole number ratio to one another. So let's see what's the meaning of this. It's like just a definite proportion. Okay, we have to take the idea from there only. So when two elements combine to form two or more compounds, fine, more than one compound is possible. Then the masses of one of the element, out of that mass of one of the element which will combine with the fixed mass of the other. Means if two elements are there, then mass of one of the element is always fixed. Okay, it will not change. And then when they'll in that formula, in that compound, they'll just bear a simple whole number ratio. Let's see. If I take the example of carbon, carbon combines with oxygen, gives you two compounds. One is CO2, fine, and one is carbon monoxide. If I'll take half oxygen here, fine, then it will give carbon monoxide. So let's see, take these compounds, carbon, CO2 and CO. Fine, let's take their masses percentage. Here C, here oxygen. So let's take their percentage. Fine. Here percentage of carbon by their masses, you can say mass is what here? 12. Oxygen is 32. Fine. Here also carbon is 12. Oxygen is 16. Fine. Now you just see mass of the carbon, because carbon is combining with the oxygen to give you more than two compounds. So carbon is fixed here. As we have seen, we are saying mass of one of the elements. So here one of the element is carbon. Okay, it is fixed, which will combine with the fixed mass of the other element. So it is combined with the fixed mass of the other, that is your oxygen. Okay, so here one is fixed, carbon one is fixed, and then oxygen will change, and then together they will bear a simple ratio. So let's take the ratio of this. This is fixed, one of the element is fixed, which is combining with the fixed mass of the oxygen. So 16 is to 32, 8 is to, 1 is to 2. So they will bear a simple ratio of 1 is to 2. in this compound. Okay, to each other. To each other. Similarly, we can take the other example of, let's take this example of sulfur. Sulfur forms two oxides with oxygen. One is sulfur dioxide and one is sulfur trioxide. So sulfur, oxygen, here sulfur is fixed. Okay, its mass will not change, like carbon it is fixed. Combined with the fixed mass of the other. So here it is the fixed mass, sulfur. So here fixed is, sulfur is 32. In say this is SO2 and here SO3. Here also it is 32. Oxygen 32. Here oxygen is 48. Okay. So 32 is to 48. 4 8s are, 4 1s are, 4 2s are, again 4 is to 3. So they'll combine in a fixed ratio or bear a whole number ratio 4:3 to each other. This is the meaning of this. Fine. Now this you can try, everyone has to try with the example of nitrogen. Nitrogen forms a number of oxides, dioxide, trioxide, pentoxide, like that. So you just try with the nitrogen, you have to do try with nitrogen oxides, NO2, NO3, N2O4, N2O5, NO. So this is your homework, you have to try. Fine. So I hope I am clear till here. Again I am just saying this thing, fixed mass. This is important here. Fixed mass of the other, that is C. And one of the compound, mass of one of the element, that is oxygen here. Fine. So one is always fixed. This is the meaning of multiple proportion by mass. Now let's see the last law, Gay-Lussac law. Okay, Gay-Lussac. So let's see the Gay-Lussac law. Fourth one, Gay-Lussac law, given by the, as the name suggests, Lussac, Gay-Lussac, in 1808. Now what he said, according to Gay-Lussac law, he has given, basically he has given the law for the gases, for the gaseous products as well as reactants. Fine. Then what he talked about, what was his statement? His statement was that that gases combine, okay, gases combine by their volume, and then that volume has to be fixed. Okay, whatever volume they will possess, that bears a simple whole number ratio. So gases always combines in the volume and that ratio will be fixed. For example, let's say hydrogen is a gas, combines with chlorine, which is also a gas, gives you 2 molecules of HCl, which is also a gas. So here we can say that 1 volume of hydrogen, 1 volume of chlorine gives you 2 volume of HCl. This is the meaning. Now let's see the ratio. Simple ratio, 1:1:2. This is the meaning of this. That they possess a, combine in a simple ratio by their volume. So what's the statement for this? That when gases react together, when gases react together, they do so in volumes which bear a, gases are combining together, they do so in volumes which bear a simple ratio, that is this one, in one another and to the volumes of the products, and to the volume of the products. Ratio in one another, that is 1:1. This is so simple. And with the products, if they are gases, 1:2 if these are also gases, provided all measurements of volumes are done under, this is the condition, provided all measurements are done under similar conditions of temperature and pressure. Conditions of temperature and pressure. Fine. So this what is about this law, that according to law, when gases are combining together, they do so in volumes with one another and then with the product as well, if that is also a gas, and then provided all the measurements under similar conditions of temperature and pressure. So we can say that gases combine in their volume if under all conditions of temperature and pressure. Okay, under similar condition of temperature and pressure, they combine in volumes which bears a simple, this is a simple statement, when this gases combine in their volumes under the given condition or similar condition of temperature and pressure, and that bears a simple whole number ratio, that is 1:1:2. Similarly, we can take another example also. Let's take the example of let's take nitrogen is a gas, combines with hydrogen, gives you ammonia, which is also a gas, balance it. So this is also 1 volume, 3 volume, then 2 volume. Ratio is 1:3:2. Simple one. Okay, no fraction, no decimal, nothing. Fine. Similarly, water, 2H2O. This is what? Sorry, here it's not a gas form, here it's a liquid form. So 2 volume, 1 volume if it is a gas, let's say, then 2 volume of water. So 2:1:2 is the ratio. So this is the meaning of this law. We can show also by this. Volume plus gives you 1 volume, or say 3 volume of this ammonia, and then 2 volume of ammonia. This space will increase volumes. Fine. So this is the meaning of Gay-Lussac law. Okay, so here we have covered all the laws of chemical combinations which are responsible for the chemical reaction. Fine. So I hope I am clear till here. So in next class we'll start with the next part, atomic, that atoms and molecules. Fine. Till then, thank you and have a nice day.